Yeah, that's why I asked. Great.
We've been on the road 24 years, dude, since '87. So, well, yeah, of course. I mean, been on many buses.
Well, let's get into the interview then, and then talk about your history of this tour of Public Enemy, your relationship with Cardiff. I mean, as one of the first rap groups to really solidify, the importance beyond touring in America and touring overseas. How important would you say your relationship with UK is?
UK was the first place that really solidified our base, as well as the city of Philadelphia. So coincidentally, when things were jumping off in the streets, it was just kind of like funny that Philadelphia and London were on the radar, and they were our first cities. You can look on the Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back in the liner notes, and it says 2 cities that we'd like to thank in Philadelphia and London. So I think over the last 24 years, what a lot of angst has built up because of promises that have been broken. I mean, take a young kid in Hackney. Not even young, they could be like 35, but they start off young, and then they knew they try to get a little knowledge of themselves. Then they seen like maybe the last 10 years where wealth and maybe all the P Daddy riches and get rich or die trying, and then at the end of the day they realize I'm gonna still be in Hackney.
Yeah.
So anything goes after that point, after promises have been deferred, and an American dream gets sold across on a rap video that you can get your Maybach and get these riches and helicopters, and when you don't get it at the huge exchange rate, all hell broke loose.
Creates a division.
Well, the division is already there.
Right.
The haves and the have-nots. When the haves actually become more of a have and more distant than the have-nots, and the have-nots realize that they're never going to have. You're gonna have issues.
Absolutely. Now, how would you feel about the relationship of all between the audience and the artist in 2011? Feel like it's something you will...
Well, it's coming back together because there's a lot of artists that realize that it's got to be about the craft, and it can't be about this whole exclusive. I'm here and you're down there, and you make me rich, and I show off my riches to you, and you're gonna love me regardless because I'm gonna beat it into you. That shit is over, man.
Yeah.
So I'm very much a fan of public relations always for an artist. And the artist, like me, I mean, everybody's music is what there is. Their music is their personal signature and identity. Their videos or whatever, their art. But when it comes down to like performance and relating that, you have to be beyond it. You have to extend what you do to take it to the next level of being able to have people who are fanatical. You have to work on that.
Absolutely.
I don't judge anybody's music. I think they could be whatever. I mean, from Soulja Boy to Drake to M.O.P. Everybody could do what they got to do. But when it comes down to getting down on the stage, you got to present your art in the best sense possible, and you got to be able to be humble and hospitable to the places that you go.
Absolutely. And
you should learn about where you go. You can't go to a place and totally disregard their existence.
That's the one thing I noticed last night was that you was specifying where you were at. You notice in most shows, like you said last night, you go to most shows, they think they're in Portugal, when in actuality they're in Cardiff. You would let it be known so many times where you were when you knew of his history. I mean, do you have any personal memories, any special memories of Cardiff especially?
One of the first places we came to back in the days, and the difference that you're going to Wales, and then you learn always can learn from the people who drive you.
Right.
Always have a conversation. See, the most important aspect of hip hop and rap music for an artist is to listen before they talk. You have see, the most valuable resources on this planet are people, places, and things in that order, not things.
Right.
People, only a certain people, and then places. People, places, and things, because you can always have a conversation with a person that tells you about the place where they're from, and then things are far distant third. So I think that has been the fallacy of most rap artists in the genre. And it doesn't mean that it's natural. It means that it has to be taught and coached. No matter what somebody does, no matter what their music is, they could talk about heaven or hell. But you got to be able to relate to the people that relate to you and listen first before you speak.
Would you say that it was an instant relatable thing? You coming over to Wales for the first time and able to get it, or did it take you a few visits to understand our culture, Wales as a country and such?
Well, you're helped by talking to people, and you're helped by reading.
Right.
And then, you know, in modern days, there's no excuse when you actually communicate with somebody on the internet.
Yeah.
Somebody had the nerve the other day on Twitter, was like, you know, asking me all kinds of questions about, like, well, aren't these other African nations, isn't their governments messed up? And I said, you know, lady, you have access to the World Wide Web. Make a friend. You don't ask me the questions.
Right.
You know, it's just, you don't have Facebook and Twitter just to find an ex-classmate. Or I just use Facebook to communicate to people in my own town. I mean,
it truly is a tool, isn't it? People need to start looking at it as that, a tool, and use it as the tool it is for. Yeah.
Tissue could wipe your nose or your ass.
Exactly. Well said. Now, I mean, I know you use the live crowd noises on It Takes a Nation. Have you thought as far ahead as to use, you know, live crowd noises from this tour, this current UK tour, on future projects at all, or
no, not
is something you've not thought about?
Next project we do is, like I say, you know, my joy in making is always going to be making recordings. People ask the question, so when you're in the studio, I say, you carry your studio damn near in your pocket now.
Right.
But I think, you know, the joy for me is making one song at a time. Like when I made that Notice track, you know, I mean, it was 1:38.
Right.
You know, my man G Wiz, we just heard the Otis by Kanye and Jay, and I was like, okay, you know, I know Otis. Listen to this beat. He comes back and chops it up in like 20 minutes. I record something in like a half an hour. No budget, zero budget, you know, and within, like, you know, a couple hours we have something that's, I mean, the spontaneity is what makes you look at, you know, an album. Although we have people who are waiting for an album because they're brought up in that time with that idea of what it is, but I think that, to me, the joy comes as one song at a time. Album, I can make a conceptual album.
Right.
Does my joy come in it? Not as much as making a record for the moment.
Right.
For example, to when people say, well, what am I listening to? I still can't get away from Rakim's last album. You know?
Really?
Yeah, Seventh Seal. I mean, every single song. I just think that when he came out with such a great album, and people are like, I listen to all the cuts and they throw it away like tissue. A song is not, and so when you have this volume of songs and people make albums, you got to ask yourself, like, why am I making 14 cuts so you could whisk through it in a month and not go back to it? So on my radio show, I'm playing songs. I'm going to be playing Rakim, Seventh Seal for the next year.
That's what's so sad about the game right now, is that, you know, it's the blogs, I blame. It's the internet to an extent. I mean, these songs, you go to a blog, these songs last on the front page for, let's say, a couple of hours, no more than that. People forget about it the next day.
Well, that's why on Hip Hop Guides, you know, our concentration is classic artists, because I feel that now we got to take hip hop and break it into segments so each area can live. Once you start to say the universe of hip hop,
right,
and you're throwing Drake in with Rakim, then you can just get lost. And then then you know, this is people that just say, okay, those are just, you know, USA artists. Although Rakim's a world artist and Drake's a USA mainstream artist, right, you got to include every nation. Then people say, well, what about hip hop, you know, around the world? I said, well, you know, hip hop has been around 30 years recording wise, so you would think that my now 78th tour in 24 years going around the world, you would think that each and every country has at least 1,000 artists who are trying to, you know, get some kind of burn.
Without a doubt. Whilst we're talking about the hip hop guys, I want to give you props for posting the Conspiracy Radio joke
you guys,
every week. Yeah,
you guys, Conspiracy Radio really seriously hawks on the era of organizing rap music and hip hop like it should. The biggest part of the problem of rap music and hip hop is its lack of infrastructure, especially when, you know, in the States. When you check out a radio show, it's just pure rubbish.